Now, with lots of FPL managers on a wildcard in game week 12, I thought I'd ask artificial intelligence to build me the best wildcard draft ahead of game week 12 and see what it has to offer. Now, before we dive into today's video, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as we are trying to hit 15,000 subscribers by the end of the season, and it is only possible with your guys' amazing support. Now, before we dive into the AI team itself, of course, with my wildcard videos, I love to use data from 11fi, obviously looking at future projections. I will leave a link to their amazing website in the description if you want to go and check it out for yourself as well. And obviously, I'll be referring to it quite a bit when we are looking at the team and some of the AI picks as well. So I think it's useful to go through it now, and then of course we will head over to the AI team itself. So first off, I do have the defensive kind of projections for the next 6 game weeks from 11fi. As we can see here, Arsenal really fancied to be a pretty decent side over the next few in terms of clean sheet percentages. So definitely, if you're on a wild card, maybe worth considering the likes of Raya and Gabriel as well. Of course, Manchester City and Liverpool also feature on there. They are, arguably some of the best teams within the league right now. And I know, City are having their blips, but still, historically, they are still one of the top teams within the side. And still, the defensive numbers aren't appalling in terms of XG conceded. So again, the data is suggesting that they're going to be a pretty decent team to back, as are Liverpool as well. Of course, then we do have this nice middle block where I feel there's some amazing value picks. Obviously, Levi Colwill for Chelsea, I think, is a fantastic pickup. Of course, we've got Lewis Hall for Newcastle as well. There are some interesting Brighton players, but I think with heavy rotation within their back line, probably going to put me off there. Of course, we've got Luka Digne and Ezri Konsa from Aston Villa as well, which are the standout picks for their team. And then Kirkez from Bournemouth, who's also been featuring in quite a few wildcard drafts I've seen as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not the AI agrees, of course, with this data, and obviously looking for future projections going forward and whether or not it does take any of this on board, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. Let's move on to the projected goal data from 11fi. Again, it is going to be those same 3 teams, and there is no real shock to me, to be honest, that it is these same 3 teams. Again, historical data and data this season as well is pointing to these 3 being pretty decent attacks. I know, again, Manchester City, they've not been in the greatest form. However, they are currently topping the XG created chart as well. So it's not like they're not creating opportunities or not, getting into the positions. It's just kind of a little bit of lack of finishing, I would say, a little bit of quality in terms of games, and just a little bit of luck as well overall that has kind of been diminishing their season so far. But they are fancied again with the 11fi model for some pretty decent projected goal numbers as well. So again, it will be interesting to see if Erling Haaland does feature within the AI team itself. Of course, then we've got Arsenal and Liverpool. Again, no real surprises here. They've both got some pretty decent fixtures coming up. Arsenal main standouts are post game week 14, I would say as well. Chelsea have got this absolutely stellar run coming up, so I definitely think the AI should be selecting Cole Palmer. And again, if you're on a wild card, for me, Cole Palmer would be one of the first names. It looks like he has trained today. Obviously, I'm filming this on the Monday. It looks like he's trained today, so that's a big plus. Again, if I'm on a wild card, I'm definitely going to be picking up people like Cole Palmer. Interestingly, one of the teams that is down the bottom is Nottingham Forest, and I know Chris Wood is very popular in terms of the Fantasy Football Hub point projection models, so it is going to be interesting to see whether or not it has selected him with low projected goals over the next few weeks, with Forest kind of having this more difficult fixture run across the board. Finally, before we head into the team itself, let's go ahead and take a look at predicted points across the next 5 game weeks. I feel like this is going to be a really good barometer to see which players it is, of course, potentially looking at selecting. Interestingly, Erling Haaland is top of this list. We saw as well with that 11fi data that the projected goal numbers are looking pretty decent, but whether or not it's going to have Erling Haaland in, you will have to wait and see. Salah, Palmer and Saka follow that, all of which for me, realistically, I think if I was on a wild card and I wasn't looking at Erling Haaland, I definitely think would be 3 names straight on the list for me in terms of buys. All of them have captaincy potential over the next 6 to 7 game weeks. All of them are very capable of picking up mega hauls, and all of them have been pretty consistent so far this season as well. Alexander Isak, a very, very popular pick at the moment, again, with people on wildcards. Some decent fixtures coming up for Newcastle over the next few as well. 4 goal involvements in his past 4 games. He is a man in very, very red-hot form. Like I said, the Fantasy Football Hub model does really back Chris Wood to continue to obviously deliver over the next few weeks. I think looking at the 11FI data and just looking at the fixtures that Nottingham Forest have got coming up in general, I don't think that's going to be the trend. I do feel like there is going to be a bit of a drop-off for Nottingham Forest and Chris Wood over the next few weeks. So for me personally, I don't think he's a very, very good pickup to be going and getting. I think Cunha is the better option. I know he's a little bit more expensive. However, I think for me personally, he is just the better option with better fixtures. So yeah, that's probably the way that I would be leaning on that one. Of course, that was the 11FI data and the projected points for the next 5 game weeks. Now let's go take a look at this AI wildcard. Wasting no time, let's dive into the AI wildcard ahead of game week 12. Starting off first with our goalkeepers. Fabianski at 4 million, I think is a pretty solid pickup, as obviously featured in West Ham's 2 last games. Whether or not that is going to continue, we're all going to have to wait and see. But Muric, that's a bit of a honking pick for me personally. I know he's doing quite well in terms of just picking up save points. However, Ipswich are terrible. Like, they are the worst defence in the league. There's no getting around it. They are currently sat bottom for XG conceded, and I don't really expect them to kind of shift from that position as well. So Muric for me as a goalkeeper pick, not really worth any sort of investment, to be honest. I rather would spend that extra 0.1 million and get a 4.5 million goalkeeper who has a higher percentage chance, I would say, of keeping decent clean sheets rather than going for Muric. I think the AI has had an absolute stinker on this one. So yeah, not a big fan of the goalkeeper pick. I think Fabianski's fine as the bench goalkeeper at 4 million if he continues to play, but Muric as the starting goalkeeper, definitely not one that I would be recommending personally. Moving into the back line, of course, it has gone for Gabriel and Gavardio. As we saw with the 11FI data, both of these teams are really, really fancied over the next few weeks to do quite well in terms of their projected clean sheets. I think picking Arsenal players makes sense to me. I know they've obviously not delivered in terms of their defensive numbers so far this season. Have been frustrating owners, you know, people that went for Raya and Gabriel. However, this is a really, really decent run. And again, with that 11FI data, looking at it, it is fancy to do quite well over the next few weeks. So I think looking at Arsenal investments in terms of defence is pretty good and probably will do quite well if you are on a game week 12 wildcard. Gavardio's a little bit more of an interesting one. The City fixtures definitely aren't there over the next 5 to 6. However, he is currently the second highest point scoring defender within the game. He's been doing exceptionally well despite City not really keeping too many clean sheets. And if we are led to believe what the 11FI data is suggesting and there's, you know, decent clean sheets on the horizon, then maybe he could be a decent pickup on a wildcard that's potentially going a little bit under the radar. But for me personally, I probably wouldn't be recommend picking up a City defender. I don't think the fixtures are quite there for me personally, especially when you're going to be spending 6.3 million. And I think I would rather utilise that money, especially looking at some of the more forward players when we get onto them, utilising that money a little bit better and maybe better, like bolstering out the defence in terms of the bench as well, because, you know, over the next few weeks, it is going to be, you know, busy Christmas period. There's going to be lots of rotation. I'd rather have, you know, starting players rather than have to rely on people like, you know, O'Shea, as we can see here on the bench, and of course a cheap 4.5 million as well. So that for me personally is my only gripe with the defence. Digne, I think, is a pretty decent pick, but again, are his minutes secure? I don't quite know. He's obviously currently the starting left back for Aston Villa. There are some pretty decent fixtures coming up for them. We saw with the 11FI clean sheet data as well. They're also really, really fancy to do quite well over that time period. So I don't have any problems with picking Villa defenders. I just think that maybe, you know, with Champions League thrown in there, lots of league games coming up as well, I think Maddison will see some starts over the next few weeks. And I do think Digne will potentially miss out on some games. So for me, again, I probably wouldn't be recommending picking somebody that's got such a high chance of rotation. I'd rather have a more nailed, solid centre-back, especially in that price bracket as well. It's not like we're short of options for me personally, so I'm not too keen on Digne. Then in terms of the bench defenders as well, Alex Moreno and Nottingham Forest have been doing exceptionally well over the past few weeks. Of course, Nottingham Forest currently sat second for XG conceded. But as we saw with the 11FI data, there's a massive, massive drop-off in terms of their clean sheet percentages. Of course, as well, the fixtures are just not there for Nottingham Forest for me personally. And again, we are blessed within the market for these cheap defenders, Hall, Kirkes, Colwell if he's fit and available, that all have better fixtures going forward, better chances of clean sheet percentages as well according to the 11FI model. So for me personally, I don't like the Moreno pick. O'Shea's fine, but again, having double Ipswich defence, that for me just feels like a little bit of not one that I'm, again, overly keen on, to be honest. Like I said, 20th for XG conceded. I don't really feel comfortable playing Muric. Never mind if I had to double up with O'Shea slotting into that side as well. So for me personally, I'm not too keen on Digne, Moreno and O'Shea as overall picks within the back line. However, moving on into the midfield, as we can see here, the 4 starting midfielders that it has selected, it's stacked. It really, really is stacked. And obviously, they're going without Erling Haaland, as you can see, because they would have no budget left to fulfill that, to go and get him into this squad. But Son, Palmer, Saka, Salah, as we saw with the projected points over the next 5 game weeks, these are some of the top projected point scoring players. They've all got amazing captaincy potential as well over the next few game weeks. And I really, really like every single pick on here, to be honest. Yeah, I honestly, when I saw the AI midfield that it built, I was like, wow, okay, this is ridiculously strong. All of these players, like I said, have massive potential for big double-digit hauls. Of course, like I said, they've all got decent captaincy potential. We've spoke about it in quite a few videos on the channel already, discussing the kind of alternative routes for captaincy over the next few weeks. And realistically, there is probably only maybe 1 to 2 game weeks over the next 7 that Haaland is the clear, or maybe at least an option within those weeks. Otherwise, you are looking at the likes of Palmer, Saka, Salah, and even Son as well, with some decent sporadic fixtures thrown in there for Spurs as well. Speaking of Spurs as well, as a whole, they've been pretty good in terms of XG created. They've probably been a little bit unfortunate over the opening period of the season as well, because they have been scoring plenty of goals. They've also been creating plenty of opportunities, and maybe they just need to find that clinical edge, get themselves back on the horse, and get themselves some goals. Obviously, our other midfielder is going to be Harry Winks. Again, 4.5 million, plays pretty much most minutes. I don't really have any gripes with that one. Again, there is 0.5 million. I would maybe prefer dropping Gvardiol and getting like a Rodgers or a Semenyo, somebody that I feel could have a little bit more of an impact on the bench to rotate around with our forwards, if, because they don't have the best fixtures, as we'll come on to see. But I think that's rather what I would do with this side. Drop Gvardiol, pick up a Semenyo or a Rodgers and upgrade that Winks position. But the 4 starting midfielders don't have a problem with for me personally. Let's finish up. Let's take a look at our 3 strikers that the AI has selected. All of these featured on the projected points list, as well as we saw back at the start of the video. Jimenez, Pedro and Wood. Now, I like Raul Jimenez as a pick. I don't have a problem with that. I think Fulham have some decent fixtures, but again, you are going to need some rotation for the difficult games in 15, 16 and 18. And looking at our bench, where are we really getting that kind of rotation from? There isn't really there. So you're going to have to play Raul Jimenez in these difficult games that Fulham do have coming up. They do have some decent ones spotted around, but of course, outside of that, you're probably going to be having to play him, Chris Wood, who's also got some really difficult fixtures coming up with of course, Nottingham Forest as well. So you're going to have to play 2 strikers realistically, or you're going to have to put a Winks in there, or double up on an Ipswich defence, or put Moreno in, who also has difficult fixtures. So I think the AI needs to have a little bit more of a think, maybe spread around a little bit of that Gvardiol, Gabriel budget, and invest in a little bit of a better defence to rotate around the Raul and Wood picks for me personally. João Pedro as well. He's also one that I don't think is secure in his minutes. He's just come back from quite a long-term injury. I know he had a stellar performance off the bench before the international break, but Rutta's been playing in that 10 role and has been doing exceptionally well within it. And I don't know whether or not João Pedro goes straight back into that squad. Of course, as well, like I said, with a lot of these players, we do have heavy fixture congestion coming up. So I think we could be in a little bit of a position where people like João Pedro might potentially struggle for some minutes, might struggle for starts as well. And when, again, you are relying on these guys to be starting most weeks, not 100% a big fan of that pick either. And then finished up, Chris Wood. I know he's had an absolutely stellar start to the season and has been flying. Even the back end of last season was in mega form. But overall for me, as we saw with the 11-5 data, the projected goals, the fixtures as well, if you just look at the FDR rating, it's a lot of reds, lots of greys. And I don't really fancy him as a pick going forward over the next few weeks. So if I was to overall rate this AI wildcard, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. I really like the midfield. I don't mind Gabriel and Gavardio, but the rest of the team, for me personally, it does need a lot of work, especially over this busy festive period. You don't really want to be picking rotation risk players or players that you've got to play in extremely difficult games. So overall, it's going to be a 6 out of 10. I definitely think it's showing that there is a structure available to go without Haaland and obviously stack out that midfield, but I think some of the picks are a little bit iffy. Let me know what you think of the AI wildcard team down in the description. If you've got any questions about your team as well, get them in, as we will try to answer as many as we possibly can. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck in game week 12.